Hey everyone, welcome to Restaurant Tech Trends, where we explore restaurant technology trends with some of the industry's biggest movers and shakers in a rapid-fire short interview format. This podcast is brought to you by Incept AI. Incept AI takes restaurant orders over the phone and in noisy drive-thrus with friendliness and precision. Learn more at incept.ai. My guest today, I'm very excited to have you on, Ted Hardy. He is Senior Director of Technology Transformation at Topgolf. Super interesting concept, where you lead a large team modernizing the entire restaurant tech stack across the venues, driving real cost savings and labor efficiencies along the way. Before Topgolf, Ted spent years at the forefront of restaurant product and digital innovation, including having held senior product and engineering roles at KFC and digital strategy at Papa John's. He also ran his own consulting firm and cut his teeth early at Oracle and Lexmark. Ted, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
I'm glad to have you here, learn all about what you're doing, learn all about the unique tech stack at Topgolf. But before we dive into that, would like to learn a little bit more about your background. So you spent over 2 decades in restaurant and hospitality tech. We talked about KFC, Papa John's, you guessed XM, you did your own consulting firm. How did you end up making technology transformation your life's work?
I somewhat just walked into it. I didn't ever really intend on this. People that know me know the joke is my first 2 years in college, I was a music major. I graduated with a business degree. I've had 3 tech classes in my life, was bored out of my mind in all of them. It's just one of those things that kind of works for me. And I can't explain why, but it does. So yeah, it was many years into my career before I even realized that, like, hey, this is what I was actually doing. It's like I walk in, see the problems, figure out like what needs to happen, not only just from the tech itself, but like thinking about process and people and being
Yep.
able to look out into the future and go, look, here's the place that it makes sense for us to be. How do we walk into that and get there? And so for me, I just ended up being in a few projects early on where that was what I was asked to do, and suddenly became a realization that I knew I was good at it. Let's figure out what other brands I can go help out next. And that's kind of the way my career has taken off.
And that's awesome. I love that you mentioned that it's so rarely about just the technology. It is
Yeah.
about processes and people and bringing the right people to the table, figuring out the little political fault lines and how you've got to persuade different individuals. So it is quite a unique skill set. But before we go deeper into this, tell me more about the music degree. Okay, what was your
Uh,
music degree in? You a singer, instrumentalist? Like, what? Tell us about that.
so I was a vocal major, but I ended up being in more instrumental ensembles than I was vocal. Honestly, I
Okay.
love the process of music. I love the output of it, but what I really realized was I don't actually enjoy the creative process of creating it on my own.
I
I
see.
enjoy very much the whole side of like production and trying to see bring others' vision to life. I was never that great of a musician. I'm just not. So it was more around the things of like helping other people be great at it is what I really loved, and it's probably the thing that I've taken away from it the most. Besides just an appreciation for what it takes to actually do it.
That's awesome. I did not know that about you. It's very cool.
Yeah.
I was also a music major, by the way. My wife and I met in university orchestra. So
Oh, that's
it's
amazing. That's really cool.
where our paths start and where they wind up. Could have never predicted, I'm sure, back then. So, all
No,
right.
no, definitely not.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about your transition into Topgolf. So, obviously, Topgolf is not just like a QSR, fast casual.
Yeah.
You went from the QSR side into Topgolf. You guys are like an entertainment destination.
Yeah.
You've got food and beverage as well. You've got all that tech running under one roof. What in particular drew you to Topgolf, and what surprised you the most about the operation when you landed there?
So the first I'll say is I don't golf. And in 2019, when I went as a player for the first time, I was like, this is the dumbest thing. Why are we doing this as a team building? And I got there and we played for a couple hours and I walked away going, that was really fun. And I cannot
Mm,
believe I just said that. And I was like, I just got to keep my eye on this, but didn't really think anything of it. It was 5 years almost to the day that I started at Topgolf after that experience. And
Really?
really, it came down to like when I was talking to a friend of mine who worked at the company and was hiring for the role that I'm in, and I was trying to help him out because I knew a lot of people in the area, but I don't live near the office. And I was like, how can I help you find somebody for this role? He told me what he wanted. And after like a half an hour back and forth, I was like, this is awesome. And I just made a joke. I said, I'd be really cool, but I don't live anywhere near you guys. Otherwise, I'd have to consider it. And he just goes, dude, you want the job? Cheers. Just tell me. And I was
Are
like,
you serious?
yeah. And I was like, well, now I have a problem because I was loving what I was doing at the time. And it really just came down to it's like, to the point you brought up of like, we are so different in what we do.
Yeah.
How many opportunities do you get to do that many things and interact in that many different ways? And it just is such an interesting concept. I was like, I just love hard problems. And this felt like all of them all at once. And it kind of has been. And don't get me wrong, I did have to do an interview. I had to go through a lot of them, but obviously I passed. So here we go.
That's awesome. I love that story. Gosh, you sure don't hear too many stories like that though, where you just get that verbal offer on, on a random
No,
conversation.
definitely not.
Okay, well, let's talk a bit about the problems. So
Yeah.
you're leading a large team modernizing Topgolf's F&B tech stack. When you walked in, what problems did you see? How did you prioritize, like where to start? What did you fix first? Give us the lay of the land back then.
So I was hired to do a point of sale project, but that kind of
Okay.
undersells it a little bit of like, the company had realized that their legacy partners just weren't getting it done. And they had tried to think about how they redid everything from a point of sale standpoint. They very much wanted to move to ordering in the bays, both from a server standpoint and from a customer standpoint, and realized that the tech they had just couldn't do it. What the reality was, though, I walked in and went, that's cool. We can solve that. But the real challenge was the things around it. What they had
Okay.
built in the past really was trying to put a lot of things in point of sale that shouldn't have been there. And they just didn't work right. And some of the processes on how to execute these things, especially when you got into the event side of the business, just
Mm,
didn't work. And they were either highly unreliable or when they did work, the data was always wrong and required a ton of manual intervention. So I walked in going point of sale, and what I quickly realized is no, this is a full ecosystem change. So not just the typical thing that you think of in Top Golf, if you show up, you play for 2 hours, you eat and drink, and you leave, but everything that touches all the way through the kitchen, the event ordering flow, or the event planning flow, all the
mhm.
checkout, all of the flows all the way back into the financial systems, all of it had to be rethought. All of the provisioning from our HR system and payroll time clocks going back, everything had to get rethought because none of it was working in a very optimal
Mhm.
way. Things that would take hours and hours of manual work. I just walked in and I'm like, why are we doing this? This
Yeah.
got to be a better, faster, easier way to do this that's more reliable, that doesn't require people just to brute force this thing across the line.
So let's dive into that a little bit more. Why was it done that way? Was this a result of just trying to shoehorn things into technology that wasn't designed for it? Is this technology limitations, like the platform just wasn't good enough, or it needed to be more custom for the business? Like, how did it get to that state?
Whew, I think there's a couple different things here. One, some of the tech decisions that were made at that in the past, and I'm not going to be the person to like, oh, these people before me didn't know what they're doing. They're very smart individuals, but the tech wasn't there and ready. And then the implementation side was looked at of like, well, hey, if the point of sale can't do it today, let's have the vendor extend it and build more stuff on it. And then from there, they'll support it. Well, they didn't, to be really honest about it. Like they got us through the sales cycle, we got implemented. It did never quite work, and then it really just kind of went, well, see you, have a good time, have fun rolling it out. And really, the reality of it was it just didn't ever work the way people thought it would or should. And then over time, as the business was focused on growing, rightly so, because the concept was exploding, no one cared and fed and maintained and put those right processes in place to make sure that as the business changes, you can actually have a product that continues to grow with you. The joke inside of Topgolf is the company reinvents itself about every 2 years. And so what we do is totally different again. And it just wasn't ever set up to be able to handle that level of change at that speed. And it just we ended up outgrowing the things that never really worked right. And the problems just kept compounding and kept getting worse.
All right. Well, I'd like to learn a little bit more about the tech stack specifically. What was swapped out? What did you swap in? How did you run this evaluation when you're plugging in all of these different components, making sure that I'm assuming part of this did involve a POS change as well.
It,
How do you make sure that that POS system has the extensibility that you need with some of these other systems that you're talking about? Walk us through that.
yeah, so a couple of things. One, we had a set of core principles that we were going after. It's like, it has to have great support for mobile and being able to walk around the venue. I mean, our venues are huge, and yeah, you got Wi-Fi, but like that doesn't necessarily mean it's consistent and reliable, even if you own it all yourself. So you have to be able to think about like how do you make sure that you have a system that not only can work wirelessly and is designed from that way from the ground up, but also one that is resilient to when connections don't work well, you can still operate the business. And so from that standpoint, it was like, hey, this is just a core tenet of what we need to do. Who does that the best? And there were a few, but really what you come down to is many of the more, what I would say is more traditional point of sales consider like, your four walls, and they assume that you have an Ethernet connection and that they have a stable and reliable connection. We just went, we don't. We're never going to have that in the same way. So the concept it's got to be more like networking on a phone than it does networking on a PC. You just have to think about it in a different way because the venue itself is so different than what you're traditionally doing. So from our standpoint, that was key. Once we got there, it was, look, you now have to think about how do we get things in and out easily, so it has to be a modern platform. Like that is, again, with some of the legacy systems, like we knew that we integrate our golf system with the point of sale to feed charges over for gameplay. We need a very reliable, stable, rock solid way to do that. And we also need to do it consistently across, because it's not just that system that feeds in, it is our event sales system and our digital system, and they all are going to feed in through this one channel. So you're going to have a lot of in and out. We need something that has a very modern API based structure. Otherwise, this just isn't going to work. And when you start really looking at those things, you quickly narrow down that field to just a small number of players that can truly do what you need. And so from us, it then became a relationship question. Who fits with us the best? Who is coming to us with the right solution that really fits to solve those problems and can do it as a great partnership? And that's how we ended up picking where we went.
And who'd you pick? Can you say?
Oh yeah, we can say we picked Toast. And the thing is, like, a lot of people might even look at that and go, like, really? Like, you picked a little SMB point of sale? Like, first of all, I think that's underselling what they do. I understand that the reason people think that, because yes, historically that is where they have come from. But over the last few years, they have improved those capabilities a lot. But again, it's what are we looking to do? We looked at how do we take an order, how do we make sure we can fulfill it? That's their bread and butter. And so from that standpoint, the devices, they're basically cell phones with big batteries on them. Their platform is relatively new compared to most anyone else out there. They had all the needed capabilities that we have because we were not, and I always say this again, putting all of the things in it that shouldn't be there. You don't want to make it try to do part of your event sales. Like should be about fulfilling drinks during the event. But like, we're not talking about sales systems here. That's a different thing. Don't try and build some of that into what just the point of sale is. That's just a losing game.
Okay, so that was actually going to be my next question because when you were describing this rollout, you mentioned that you had the event sales system now feeding into this new platform.
It does.
So this was basically before it was part of the POS. You ripped that component out of the POS. You said, nope, we're going best of breed. We're going to get this event sales platform. We need that to play nice with Toast. What did you use for the event sales side?
So slightly differently. So we kept our sales
Slightly
system
different.
the same. Yeah. So we
Okay.
actually did have a sales system, but what we didn't do before versus what we do now, one of the big problems was, when you think about like a worst case scenario, is a full day, full venue buyout. That in the sales process can be hundreds of lines of things, delivering new set of food every 2 hours, all the drinks. And you got to think, if you have that many people in a venue, 102 bay venue, basically 6 people per bay. If you're there all day, you more than likely have several shifts going in. So you're talking to tens of thousands of people can theoretically come through that venue that could be ordering drinks all day long. When you
Mm-hmm.
think about the amount of data and the complexity of inside an order at that point, that's really hard to manage. So
I
one of the
see.
things I sat down and I said to the team, I said, when you really think about it, what are we doing? We're selling gameplay, we're selling event rental space, we're selling food packages, we're selling drink packages. You're
Mm-hmm.
really selling 4 things. And when you look at the financial systems and what we feed over, we consolidated all down to those systems, or we were consolidating it down to those when we fed it into the financial system. I was like, why don't we just push that back further? As it comes out of the sales systems, don't feed us thousands of lines, feed us 4.
I see.
The accounting doesn't change. But now we're moving from hey, we can change whatever happens in the sales system now to be whatever we need it to be. And you broke the hard one-to-one tie of line items between the sales system and point of sale. Everything summarizes based on category coming in. As long as you make sure that if you add a new category, you just add that, things all just work. And
Okay.
whereas before we constantly had failures because we were trying to maintain thousands of different one-off free items, and we just couldn't.
Okay. I mean, I can clearly see the efficiencies here, and that is actually a great segue into the next question,
Yeah.
which is you have talked about using technology to deliver cost savings, labor efficiency as well. I'd like to talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
and then revenue recovery. Can you give us some specifics here? Like,
Yeah.
where has technology actually moved the needle? Are you able to share any numbers with us? I think we would love to hear that stuff.
Numbers would be challenging, but I can talk in some generalities of like, there are some things that we would watch. Like I would go in and like as you look at our processes for the amount of time it took to close out an event the day after. Even if the point of sale side was closed, when you do the reconciliation and that kind of stuff, it was a very manual, labor intensive process for our admin team at the venue to do every day. So we kind of took it a little bit of a different approach. We said, okay, this is one of the things that takes the most amount of time. It's very hard and cumbersome to do. What do we do to solve that? Funny enough, it was the exact same thing as what we just did about the injection side of it. It's like, how do you simplify this? How do you make it to where the things that they see that are needed to reconcile are separated from the other things? Like those 4 line items, they're the same. They don't change. So we made
Right.
sure no one ever touched them. What does change is, hey, I need to know what things that were ordered that are during the event that are not part of what was originally sold. And then do we charge for those or did we not? Because there's some things like, hey, I want to go buy a dozen golf gloves to give my team right now. That we might charge for. But like if you bought food and you were still hungry, man, just bring some more food up. We're not going to worry about that. So it was things like that about, whereas before it was hey, every single line's got to be tick, tick, tick. It's like, no, it doesn't. When you really think about it, you're only concerned about certain categories of things. How do we make that easy? And so those are the type of things that we looked at. And we removed many hours of labor at the venue every single day in
Okay.
administrative tasks
Okay.
just by simplifying those processes. And when you do 101 venues, 365 days a year, you can count up to some big numbers.
All right. Well, everyone is always, interested in labor savings.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us, did you actually save the labor, or did you reallocate the labor to other
Ah,
tasks?
I'm going to say this, it depends.
Okay.
So some of those tasks were done by hourly employees. That we did save the labor. Now, we may have turned around and chosen to spend that labor on something totally different. But in terms of if you look at the actual spend on some of the administrative stuff, yes, it went down. Now, in terms of managers type stuff, yeah, there's a little bit more. It's more of reallocation and focus because they don't have to worry about those things anymore. And I remember one of our office people at the venue, she literally, it was one of our early on ones, she actually cried. She looked at me and she goes, because I showed her what she needed to do. And she's like, well, it has to be more than this. And I was like, it's not. This is all it is. And she literally teared up and she's like, you got to understand what a game changer this makes to my job. Every day, knowing that this is so much easier, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this. And it's truly one of those moments that you just never forget.
So walk us through how that translates to the venue's operation. So if you're saving several hours on these administrative tasks, where did you deploy the labor instead?
Honestly, it was a free give back. So from that standpoint, like we did not add in other areas. My comment that I made to the team, I said our goal was, I said, overall, we have to get better for everybody. No one can get worse in this. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that every area got the same. There are some areas in our teams that did not see a lot of savings out of it because they were already fairly efficient in it. But the goal was everybody has to stay at a parity or go better. So then we just basically said to the operations team, here's all the areas that we've given back. You all go right ahead and figure out how you want to deploy it to do other things. And so that was not on us to figure out. We definitely laid that on them to say, you all tell us what you need.
Okay. Fair answer. Well, we can't have an interview without talking about AI in restaurants because that's what everybody is talking about these days.
Yeah.
First of all, are you guys using AI for anything, or have you deployed it in a large way in any particular part of the business? Is it actually earning its keep somewhere? Are you just kind of testing stuff out? And I'd also like to find out from you, where do you think there's future promise and potential, but we're just not really there today yet?
So we are. It also, to me, goes back to the question of like, what do you mean by AI? Like we've had machine learning in our venues for a very, very long time on the golf platform side. We own a tech company called Top Tracer, and it's in our venues. It's also used all around the world for green grass golf. So from that standpoint, we have been doing this for a long time. Now, is that AI as people are talking about it today? Well, it's a little different. Yeah, I get that. But a lot of it is built in some of the core fundamentals and how you think about the models that you need. We are looking at things like, Toast obviously has a product, and we definitely are focused on looking at that. Several other of our vendors do as well, and we are evaluating and looking at some of those. And then internally, what are we doing? Like on the corporate side, yes, we are definitely doing a lot in terms of our data warehousing side of things, our financial analysis, and then obviously our software development, we are using it extensively as well. So
Yeah.
lots of things we're
Claude Code.
focused on.
There you go. Well, let me toss up a few softballs for you.
Please.
Okay, so we're just going to do a little bit of a laundry list on some of the things that I'm hearing people talk about. So demand forecasting. How much food, how much alcohol, drinks do you need to order? Using AI to manage that. So that's one. We've got labor scheduling. How much are you using AI to like set the schedules versus like relying on GMs? We've got CDP stuff where you're looking at like menus and you're trying to figure out like which menu items are driving the most like repeat visits or the highest lifetime value for customers. You've got obviously ordering as well, so like voice ordering, what we do. There's a lot of other ways that you can filter AI into ordering, such as by like making recommendations when people are ordering off kiosks or stuff like that. So those are just like a few of like the little cases that I see out there. Are you guys doing any of that stuff? Guest feedback is another one too. Taking all the guest feedback and like aggregating all that stuff and trying to figure out patterns and surfacing,
Well, I think you hit a few of them that we're looking at. So from a standpoint of, again, back to the themes of what am I good at? It's how do I get rid of some manual work? So, when you think about as many business lines as we have in terms of walk-in and reservation, events, retail sales, the sales projection side of things can be very, very challenging. There are some better tools that have come available, but the reality of it is, given our number of businesses that we go into, they're very different in terms of their demand planning. So that is definitely an area of active work that we're looking at right now of like, hey, how do we make this thing less manual? So
Yeah.
that's a big area. Obviously, accuracy, all those type of things go into it as well. But it's definitely a significant challenge for us that is different than, when my time in QSR, what happened? You had front counter in your drive-through, and it's a throughput game because you have one make line. At some point, that conversation is not that hard. So this is
Yeah.
definitely very different. So definitely those type of things. In terms of the menu and analysis, I lump that a lot of that into our financial system. Yes, our financials group, they do a lot of that analysis for us, and so working very closely with them on that kind of stuff as well. Not
Okay.
really on the ordering at this point, but it's just a
It's not
different.
really your model. So it
Yeah,
doesn't really
that's
make
the thing. They're so loud. Like, man, like that's one of the most fun things about going to our venues is just seeing how excited and happy people get. But that also means they get really loud, and the music is really loud. It makes those things a little bit more of a challenge at times.
All right. Well, let's move off of AI, unless your next example happens to be AI. All of us in technology, we've all rolled stuff. Not everything has worked out as promised. You gave the example earlier on of the event sales stuff that was tied into the POS, but that wasn't under your watch. So let's hear about something that you've rolled out. It could be at Topgolf, could be earlier in your career, where you had expectations that were not really met. Tell us about that experience and what you took away from it.
Yeah, so how about we just go all the way back to my very first project in my career? Let's just start at the beginning. We were supposed to roll. I was put on to do some testing and some training material, in case kind of like UAT type stuff
Hmm.
for my prior role, and it bombed. The whole thing just died. That whole
Okay.
project got canned, got reloaded, and moved to a completely different vendor. Why? What I would say is there was a couple things. One, there was a bad decision made to begin with to think that that technology that we had selected could even do the work. It couldn't. So the decision, people making the decision of it, should not have been making the decision. It was one of those that got picked up at the executive level, and then when it was handed to us to implement, it was like, "There's no way this can work. Like you all don't understand the business at all." So that was one thing.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah, to that point though, like why did it fail beyond that? Like we had a running gag that we were working with some consultants, and whenever a new version would come out, we'd all go to training together, and guess what? They'd be sitting in the room with us, learning it at the same time we were. And it's like, hold on a minute. How are you
Yeah.
going to help us if you A, don't know our business, and B, don't know the software? We picked bad implementation partners as well. And really, what it comes down to is, they didn't really know at that company exactly how to run large initiatives. And, we
I
would
see.
spend 18 months on projects and barely get things out the door and they would be broken. And we would spend the next 18 just fixing them. And
Yeah.
the reality of it is, some of that is the time because that was, early 2000s. We just didn't know what we didn't know. The processes that we ran on were not as well thought through as they are today, and the tooling wasn't there. And then
Yeah.
when you have bad decisions that you make at the start, sometimes these things are just not recoverable.
Yeah. Well, you may have the same answer for this next question, but I'm hoping we can bring it maybe a little bit more into the modern era.
Yeah.
You have gone through a big technology transformation here at Topgolf. Talked about bad implementation partners, consultants not understanding the business, executives not understanding the business. What is the biggest mistake you see today when restaurant brands want to modernize? You've gone through a huge modernization here. Are there just like one or two blind spots that you think, hey, if I'm going to call out one or
Yeah.
two, these are going to be them?
Yeah, a couple of things.
Okay.
And I'm going to go back to my one of my prior lives here. It is
Okay.
a lot harder to do this when you're in a franchise environment. Just full
Yes.
stop. And please don't think that's me saying franchisees are awful. That's not the case at all. It's they're running their business. It is misalignment amongst what corporate wants and what franchise wants. Both
Yep.
want sales. Both want a better platform. It's the what's the priority on this? It is
Yeah.
very hard to merge that. And what you a lot of times find, you find several different ways this can fail. You can find brands that are just saying, we're going to force and push this without partnership. And you know what that means? Franchisees are going to push back in other areas if you try that. If you don't bring them along, if they don't have their voice heard, that's going to be a problem.
Yep.
I'd also say on the other side of it, it's a lot of times people come in from outside the industry to be in leadership roles and just assume like, oh, what's no problem because I did ERP at some manufacturing. This point of sale thing will be real easy, and don't take the time to really get into the domain knowledge enough, and that they
Yeah.
oversimplify or overbelieve what a vendor tells them that they can
Yeah.
actually do. So to me, it's
Yeah.
those kind of things of like, ask questions, get in, learn more. Those will
Yeah.
get in a restaurant and see how it actually works.
Totally.
That's the things
I,
that are always going to help you.
I totally agree with this last point. I think, I've not been in the restaurant industry for that long. I joined in 2022. And I think one of the things that surprised me the most about this industry is just how operationally intense the
Yeah.
industry is and how everything just has to work all the time. It has to be completely flawless and reliable and scalable. And small changes in ops can have big impacts on guest experience,
Yeah.
crew retention, um, crew satisfaction. So I totally agree. And I see that
Yeah.
happen time and time again, especially with people coming outside of the industry.
Yeah.
I always like to say, spend time in the stores, spend time in the restaurants. You can't
Yeah.
spend too much, right?
Yeah.
Talk to people that are bagging the food, making the food, watch the kitchens run, look at every single little line on your KDS, look at how people are queuing things into the POS. Like all those little things make a big difference. All right.
Ex-
Anyway,
Exactly. Get a good operations partner that is willing to invest
yes,
in you and that
yes,
you can throw ideas off of, that they can understand that you care about them. That is
yes,
the best secret to success. And I tell it to every one of my people that comes in from outside the industry. How do you get successful at this job? Go find a good operator. That's the best.
totally. 100%, 100%. All right. Well, we've got time for only two more questions before we move
Yep.
into our rapid fire segment of this podcast. So let's take a step back
Yeah.
and talk about larger technology shifts that are going on. If you had to bet on just one technology shift that is going to define hospitality over the next 5 years, what would that be?
I think from my standpoint, I'm not really big on ways in which a lot of the things that we're being told technology will do for us when they interact with the physical world, that
Mm,
digital physical divide. I feel like there's a lot of overselling right now in that area. That's not to say that 20 years from now it won't be, but five, I have a hard time looking and seeing that's there. So I discount a lot of those things because I think at the end of the day, this is still largely a human to human type business.
yeah. So I'm thinking of things like robotics. I'm thinking of
Yep.
things that are technology interacting with guests, like
Yeah,
avatars and things like that. Are these like some of
exactly.
the areas that you're
You got it.
specifically referring to?
So I will set those off. I think those are longer term bets. I don't think they're wrong bets. They're just not here today. To me, it's
Yeah.
the things that like what can you do within the digital realm. So as we look at like I look at when I went into Papa John's, that was 2007. Our digital sales at that time were single digits. But by the time I left, we were in the 50 and they're now way higher than that. I have no idea what the current number is. But that's a massive transition. So you think about what that did at the restaurant. It went from phones ringing all the time to silence.
Yeah.
What is going to impact the rest of us? I really look at it, I go, I feel like there is what I call, with the rise, especially of AI coding tools, the ability for brands to walk in and things that they used to have to pay for that were specialty things, they can just walk away from. So in some ways, I
Mm,
look at brands where will be able to build themselves things at a lower cost that they could have ever done before. And I
yeah.
really feel like it's not going to impact the small mom and pops who don't have time. It's not going to impact the enterprise. They were already doing it anyway. But in the middle, what I see is a lot of those things that were applications doing things to help automate and push that were brands are spending a lot of money on will get brought in house done easier. And I really think that those vendors who service that model directly will have some of the hardest time in the next 5 years. So how does that define hospitality? My hope is that what you see is brands have a lot more tailored experiences that really fit into who they are, because they actually are in the control to go do that now. Now, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? I don't know, but I really feel like that we're getting to a realm where you're putting a lot more things in the brand's control to control their experience
Yeah.
than they've had in the past.
Yeah, I like to talk a lot on here about this idea of platform consolidation
Hmm.
and, death by like a million different SaaS fees, and this
Yeah.
kind of fits into that overall theme. Can you just share, though, like a couple of specifics? Like, what are a couple of the categories that you think are most at danger of just being, clotted out?
I- let's talk a little bit. Let's even stay at a restaurant for a second. My sister's a dentist, and we were talking recently about her having a problem with counting inventory. And I was like, doesn't your dental software provide that? And she's like, no. And I really sat down and thought about it for a quick moment. And I said, if you gave me a week, I could probably build you an inventory solution, just given what I know, to solve all the problems that you have. And she just looked at me like, are you for real? And it's things like that of like, I don't think you're gonna, like, you could build a point of sale until you realize you have to integrate payment. That's a different animal. The things that you do on voice is really hard to get right and to done well. I don't think the coding agents are there to do that. But when you get into things that are more like traditional, CRUD applications of just like, I need a data management tool that connects to all of the APIs and does pricing updates.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you've got API access to your systems, you could do that, and not that hard. So
Yeah.
it's things like that I look at and go like if you wanted to build your own sales flow, like, do you need Salesforce anymore? Not really. You could probably build your own depending on how
Yeah.
complex things are. It's those kind of things that I look at and go, man, or like just ways in which you interact with your franchisees. Do you need to go spend $1 million on buying portal software now to do a communication platform? No,
Yeah.
you really don't. Those are the kind of things that I think will really be different.
Oh gosh, man, I wish we had more time to talk about this because I feel like we could do an entire podcast episode like just focused on that.
Yeah.
But we don't have the time. So last question,
Yeah.
one specific problem inside Topgolf that you would love to crack in the next 12 months, but you haven't yet.
I think on the labor side, well, let me say that. When you think about a Top Golf, where are all the computers? Most that are traditional computers like PCs. They're down in the office. Where are most of the people? Where does the work go on? It's out in the venue. When you think about a QSR or something like that, the office is right there next to the kitchen. Usually, it is like if you need something, you can lean over and touch it. That is
Yeah.
not Top Golf at all. So my thing that I really have been thinking about is more, how do we bring insight and action all the way out to the front line when someone doesn't have a computer. Now I know you're thinking, well, you got a toast handheld, you got a cell phone in your pocket, and you absolutely do. But it's a different mindset and a different mentality to think about how you do that at scale when you've got 400 people in a venue, and you're
Yeah.
running how many shifts in terms of like different job, because you got people in the kitchen who need different things from people in retail who have different things at the bar or the bay host. Or the food runner. They all have very different needs in terms of data. And you're right, we're probably not going to send to give a dashboard to a food runner. But you know what? That food running lead might need something. How do
Yeah.
you do that at scale and very personalized? Those are the things that I really feel like are of interest and a lot of capability around real time. Like, how awesome would it be if somebody books online and the moment that they come in and get laid into their bay, the bay host gets a notification that reminds them to say, hey, it's John's birthday today. Like, how awesome
Yeah.
does that feel to John? So those are the kind of things that I'm really thinking about and looking about how we make things better in those areas.
I love that example. That's definitely a way of technology enabling hospitality rather than
Yeah.
getting in the way of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Ted, we're out of time for our standard interview questions. It is
Sure.
time for us to move to our rapid fire segment. So for everybody who's watching or listening, Ted has no idea what these questions are that I'm about to put
Bring
in
it.
front of him. The rules of engagement, Ted, on these questions are try to answer each one of these questions with one word if you can, one sentence if you can't. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's make it happen. Do you like to hit balls or watch from the couch? Are you actually any good at Topgolf?
Watch. I actually, I'm sad to say I don't play.
All
I'll
right.
play at Top Golf. Don't get me wrong, but like green
Well,
grass,
you said you didn't play earlier, but then you're like, oh, I did Topgolf, and like now you're like, maybe you are playing now. Who knows?
I do have clubs now, but I really don't use them. Just a reality.
All right. Well, I can appreciate the honesty. What is one word your team would use to describe you?
Oh man, this is a tough one for me because I think there are a lot and some good, some not so good. I'll just be honest. Not everybody's great in every way. I think they would probably look at me and for lack of any other word, innovative.
Okay.
Ideas are cheap. They flow constantly.
All right. Well, that's a great word to describe someone that's built their career in technology transformation. So good for you. Most overhyped technology in restaurants today.
Robotics, man. Like again, today, 10 years from now, maybe not, but the investment is just too high for versus labor cost, and tech just isn't as good. Just in there.
Who's one mentor you've had in your career that you'd like to shout out?
Ooh, fascinating. I'm going to go operator route. I text him about every 3 or 4 months and say, Chuck Simon, thank you for being an amazing partner and for teaching me everything I know, man. I couldn't have been where I am without you.
Awesome. One vendor you couldn't live without.
I mean, let's just be honest, it's Toast. They have done amazing things for us and can't say enough good things about the partner.
All right. Awesome. How many Top Golf venues have you set foot in? Ballpark.
About 25. I traveled to about 20 last year for the rollout, and so I have been to a lot.
Okay. Build it or buy it? What's your default instinct?
I would say generally build it. And I know that is weird, given we just sit and how much time talking about Toast and other things. There's some things I don't think it's the right thing, but at my heart, I'm a builder. I just am. I love making great things, and that's just what I love doing.
All right. Last one. Finish this sentence. The restaurants that win in the next decade are the ones that blank.
The ones that really care about their guests. End of the day, like if you don't, like man, I hate it in a way because it sounds like such a pat answer of like, oh, he didn't really think that through. But I truly don't think a lot of concepts do really care about their guests in the way they think they do. And I've
Yeah.
worked
Well,
with that too, not Topgolf.
this is the hospitality industry, man. I mean,
It's
at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about.
Yeah,
So,
look, if you can't get into it and care about making the lives of the people that work in the restaurants better, so they can turn around and make the lives of the guests who come to visit them better, like what are you doing? Why are you here? Like,
yeah,
this is the industry for you.
totally agree. Ted, I really want to thank you for your time today. I appreciate you coming on. Glad we finally had the opportunity to do this. I learned a lot about Top Golf. I learned a lot about your career path and some of the innovation that you're helping to drive here. Everybody, Ted Hardy, Senior Director of Technology Transformation at Top Golf. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate it, man. It's great fun.